Hey everybody, welcome to my channel, Retrovision Studios. We're back with another video. We're going to be reacting to the Spider-Man Brand New Day breakdown today by New Rockstars. So this is a spoiler alert video right now. If you have not seen the movie, I'm telling you right now, don't watch this video. This is a complete breakdown of the movie. It's going to tell you everything that's going on in the movie. So if you don't want to get spoiled, do not watch this video. But let me overall say I love the movie. I've already watched it like 4 times. The movie is incredible. I have no complaints about it, which is rare. With all the superhero movies that's been coming out, just destroyed. Everything's been bad with Supergirl and all the other crazy movies that have come out and shows. But Spider-Man did a good job. The movie itself overall is fun. They did all the characters justice. None of them were corny. None of them were overdone or goofy. You know, we didn't have like what is it? All the extra sarcasm that these other characters have in these, like especially the DC movies. There was very little woke in this movie. I'm gonna say it like that just to keep it simple, but the overall the overall lesson to be learned here by watching this movie and Peter's journey, you'll see, has a lot to do with a woke subject today. We'll get more into that at the end of the video once all that is covered, but I want you guys to see for yourself. We're going to watch this breakdown. New Rockstars always does an incredible job breaking down movies, so we're just going to see all the little Easter eggs, all the little details that were in the movie, the fun stuff that maybe most people missed or even I missed. So let's go check it out.
So we open this film on Peter Parker in his new apartment in Manhattan, an attic storage loft that he must have gotten on the cheap and moved in.
Let's take a second to look at Peter's apartment. Now basically, look at his apartment. It literally says, I work here. This is my office. It doesn't say, I enjoy life, I'm having a good time, I'm having fun, I have people that come over. It doesn't say none of that. You don't even think the kid has a TV, a radio, or none of that shit. He just, where he fixes, makes his suit, and I guess does his job, whatever else Spider-Man does. He doesn't have a Peter Parker life. It's basically Spider-Man is alive right now. Peter Parker is dormant somewhere in his mind.
Since the last place we saw him move into in No Way Home's epilogue. Peter has a new self-built suit fabricator device, 3D printing repairs to his suit. Gone is the Stark tech that he used to do this kind of thing in past MCU films. Now all of Peter's tech must...
Which I don't understand. Like, why would that tech be gone? Right? Him and Happy were super cool. He wasn't misusing it, misappropriating it in any way. You know, I mean, they had this the situation with Mysterio, but all that shit, you know, was cleared up. He came out a good guy at the end. Well, I guess if Happy forgot, but he would have had to come back and get all the equipment from Peter. Like, so my point is, if everybody forgot that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, even Happy and everybody over at Stark Tech forgot that he's Peter, then they would have forgot that Peter had all that equipment, right? They would have just been missing. But unless they tracked it down somehow, got it from him. I don't know. It was interesting to find out why he don't have none of that Stark Tech anymore, and he only has stuff that he created himself out of 3D printers. If you guys know and I missed something from another movie, go ahead and leave it in the comments. Let me know what's up.
Have been engineered by himself, and you can see on his dresser his old sewing machine, the one that he used to make the suit that he was wearing at the end of No Way Home. Over this we hear Peter's voice. Hi, my name is Peter Parker. You don't remember me, but I have something to tell you that's going to sound crazy, but it's the truth, and I know you're going to believe me because you're very good at telling when I'm lying. As we'll see in a moment, these are the words to Peter's letter.
Dude, let me tell you, that him making everybody forget who he was the stupidest stupidest shit he could ever had done. He is living a nightmare right now. Like, I don't know if anybody watching this video, if you guys know about being in love and loving someone, like for real loving them, and then making that sacrifice, like you're not going to be around this person no more, but torturing yourself by more or less stalking that person, keeping them in your mind. He didn't let go. The whole world let go of him, but he didn't let go. He walking around with this letter, driving himself crazy.
To MJ, a letter that MJ will eventually read in this movie and believe him because she's good at telling when people are lying. This is a letter that he nearly gave her in the final minutes of No Way Home in the donut shop, but stuffed in his pocket instead. Now he keeps it in that same coffee cup that MJ gave to him. Peter is calibrating.
Which is crazy because he told her, I'm going to find you and I'm going to explain everything. I promise. And he didn't. He didn't. He basically didn't. Now he's just walking around with that letter in his pocket.
Web shooters with the help of his new
himself.
AI assistant, Evie. No, Evie does not stand for Eric Voss, but she is voiced by Naomi Watts, the first major screen actress Tom Holland worked with in the 2012 film The Impossible, an actress that he really credited with teaching him how to conduct himself as a professional actor on a film set. So I really love how Tom's first on-screen mommy guides him throughout this movie. Peter has his own wall covered in less friendly neighborhood villains that he's been tracking lately, and a pop-up reconstruction of the set. We can see that it has various Daily Bugle print edition front pages about Boomerang, Tombstone, Scorpion, and Tarantula. Throughout this opening montage, he will take their photos off of this board as he brings them down. There is a clipped note at the top reading "Great power, great responsibility," as he tries to apply the wisdom that Aunt May gave him before she died. On Peter's desk, you can see containers of gold and bronze-colored substances.
Yo, tell me, yo, guys, my potheads out there, listen, what that look like to you right there? What that look like to you right there? Tell me that the silver one on the right is not a weed grinder, right? With weed in it. The one on the left is not a container of wax with some dabs in it. Tell me that's not what we're looking at right now. Like, that shit look exactly like weed and dabs. Spider-Man should be smoking some weed with the fucking depression he going through.
I'm assuming these are part of the high polymer ingredients that he mentions to Ned later that go into his webbing. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Peter's web fluid 3.01 contains salicylic acid, toluene, and methanol. I assume he uses even more efficient stuff now. Peter finds the letter that he wrote in this cup, as if he forgot that it even existed and hadn't read it in a while, and his voiceover goes on. We used to know each other.
Yeah, like, why does he constantly go back and grab that letter and read it? You understand, that's mental torture to do that to yourself.
We're together, but something bad was going to happen, and the only way to stop it was to
Throw
make
that
everyone
shit
forget
away.
me, including you. Peter's
You're not
phone
gonna give it
buzzes
to
with
her,
a
throw it
notification
away.
from Ned's Instagram account about how Ned and MJ's first day at MIT. Remember, when Peter asked Dr. Strange to carry out the Runes of Kafkal Memory Wipe spell at the end of No Way Home, he erased the scandalous history that kept Ned and MJ, from their association with Peter, from getting into their dream school. Now, those two have gotten into MIT, along with Flash Thompson, while Peter stayed in Manhattan studying for the GED, so that would set this scene sometime around August or September 2024 in the MCU timeline, or 8 to 9 months after the final shot of No Way Home. But the rest of this montage will show Peter's adventures over the next 4 years while the others are at school. Now, Peter's
I'm grateful for many things, and talk-based therapy is one of them. Because Adam
phone in this movie is a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7.
I got premium, but I'm not signed in
at the
on
cheapest,
this
and all of his
recording
fancy
device. I don't know
equipment
why
and
it's not letting me
treadmill.
sign
We
in.
are wondering how Peter is making enough money to afford all of this stuff. Maybe when he showed Yelena his feet in the back.
This is probably the only thing. The only thing I could complain about in this movie. And I do not like her character. I do not like the new Avengers. I thought that movie was absolute garbage. Sorry if you guys liked it. I didn't like that movie at all. Let me know in the comments if you like that movie or not. But I do not like her as the new Black Widow. I think she is poo-poo. Her acting is poor. Like, she's always basically the same dead-ass, monotone character with no real expression, no range in character. And I hate her nonchalant fucking attitude towards everything, no matter how intense the fight scene may be or whatever's going on. Like, look at this stupid nonchalant shit she's doing now, And I don't know why they keep writing her character this way, but they do. She's having a meeting with Peter. She invited him to come over. He wanted to talk to her about some stuff. And she said, come see me in my office. And her office is, she's in the pool naked, waiting for Peter to show up. Like, come on, man. Completely unnecessary and corny. I would have more loved to see her at a badass office with all kinds of tech around her, working on some cool shit. You know what I mean? Kind of like the new Avengers version of Shuri from Black Panther. You know what I mean? Like, really showing her that she has a brain.
Bathhouse, he was kind of promoting his OnlyFans. Ned's Instagram account name is The Grateful Ned 42. This is a play on The Grateful Dead, and 42, the big magic number from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Jackie Robinson's number, and in the animated Spider-Verse movies, the universe of the spider that bit Miles Morales, the universe where Miles G. Morales comes from. That will factor in big to Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Listen, they sure do mention Miles in this movie. Let me tell you. It's quick and it shows up like a little thing in the side, but I'm going to point it out. If he don't point it out, I'm going to point it out.
Next year. Since this movie's post-credit scene shows Ned's Spidey Tracker app finding a new location for Peter or some other Spider-Man in space, maybe it's all a clue that Ned, through his portal sorcery that he randomly had in No Way Home, is the key to the live-action Spider-Verse, having his own way of tracking Spider-Men, including Miles Morales or Gwen Stacy, or maybe even Tobey Maguire's Peter too.
No. So, at the end of this movie, there's a post-credit scene, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna dive more into it later. But at the end of the movie, there's a post-credit scene where Ned's spider tracker shows that there's a new Spider-Man detected, and when it shows the location, it shows that it's in space. So, this is what I'm thinking. This is my theory. So what I'm thinking is that these incursions are starting to happen with the whole Doctor Doom thing. And that new Spider-Man that we see that just popped up, that's a Spider-Man, most likely the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. He's on the ship with the Fantastic Four as they're headed to Earth to warn everybody about what's going on. And that was them just... You know how when you hyper travel, you just travel through space at hyperspeed, but you just pop up wherever the fuck it is that you was going. You just poops like they did in Star Trek. You then poops. That I think that's what happened. I think they just popped up from their hyperspeed travel. Boom, popped up, and then the tracker picked them up. That's a new a Spider-Man location, because what it's picking up is the DNA, the arachnid DNA, and all that shit. So that's what I think it is. We'll see later when the movie comes out if I'm right or he's right or what is going on.
From alternate Earths when they arrive via incursions. In the past, Kevin Feige has indicated that they can't really bring in the live-action Miles Morales, who we know exists in this universe, from the lines of Donald Glover's Aaron Davis in Spider-Man Homecoming.
I don't want those weapons in this neighborhood. I got a nephew who live here. Yeah, sorry, Miles. I'm not gonna make it.
Feige has said that he can't bring in a live-action Miles until after Beyond the Spider-Verse concludes, but that's coming in less than 12 months at this point. And I feel like part of that answer is going to come from this Across the Spider-Verse cameo by a live-action Donald Glover as the Prowler from some other universe. Tom Holland did say in a recent Empire interview that he wants to be the one to mentor Miles and or Gwen in a future film, saying whether that is a Miles Morales or a Spider-Gwen, I would love to be a part of setting up the next chapter like Downey did for me. Now we see this stunning shot of Peter suited up, sitting on the underside of a steel construction beam with his feet pointed toward the sky in a cityscape of New York City beneath him, looking like it's above him in this inverted shot. It's just a classic trippy Spider-Man pose that we saw in an early scene with Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy in the animated Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I love how this displays Spider-Man's emotional distance from our society, like he's using his adhesive bonding to surfaces and what must require attentive concentration just to feel like he's dangling over an abyss that would take him into the stratosphere, while he forces the city that he feels duty-bound to protect to stay behind him. Yet those skyscrapers are really clenching down on him like the teeth of a giant monster. It's just interesting how in this movie's post-credit scene, it's gonna locate a new Spider-Man in space, and that's where Peter's feet are pointed to here in this shot. Peter's voiceover concludes, because I'm not just Peter Parker, I'm Spider-Man. And sometimes Spider-Man has to do the hard thing, even if it breaks Peter Parker's heart. Maybe I'll never read this to you. Maybe I'm just writing this for me. Maybe that's my responsibility, to live a alone with the truth. But the truth is, MJ, that I love you, and I hope that deep down something inside you remembers that you love me too. Maybe that's my responsibility, to live alone with the truth. Right now, at this point in his life, Peter is not fully understanding the wisdom that his Aunt May gave him. With great power comes great responsibility isn't a demand that you live alone for the rest of your life. And as Jean Grey will pose him the question that he has to choose whether he's Peter or whether he's Spider-Man, ultimately Peter will conclude he's both of those things. Peter has a new suit design in this film, and it looks awesome. The suit that he wore at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home was described in that screenplay as, quote, a blue and red suit, new for him, but reminiscent of the suits he's seen before. And in the screenplay pages released by director Destin Daniel Cretton in this movie, they really doubled down that this new design was inspired by the suits worn by the Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire variants of Peter Parker that he met in that movie. You can really see that with the raised webbing on the red fabric, something that we haven't really seen since the Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire era, and the specific shade of blue, recalling the Mark Webb, Andrew Garfield era. And really just the way the suit fits, with a certain looseness that allows the air to ripple through it, resulting in a natural fit that really made Andrew Garfield's suit one of the best looking on film. And the suit has a new chest logo to represent this new brand new day era. Gone is the squat techie spider logo from the Home trilogy, representing Peter's hardwired collaboration with Tony Stark. Now we have this long-limbed spider with thick clawed legs that stretch up far and down his chest, representing the fact that this guy is getting arachnid organic webbing to execute the
You know that thing that you love? You'll find others geeking out about it on Facebook. Whether you're looking for community
vision of a Spider-Man in this new era, removed from the desaturated StarkTech nanotech armored designs that Peter had before, Destin Daniel Cretton assembled a dream team of department heads. Director of photography Brett Pollack, Cretton's past collaborator from Short Term 12, The Glass Castle, that also had Sadie Sink in it, and Just Mercy, VFX supervisor Jerome Chen, who worked on the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, really the best live-action web-swinging action that we've seen prior to this film. Longtime costume designer Sanja Milkovic-Hayes. Peter catches this guy in a green suit. It's an exact restaging of the cover of Amazing Fantasy 15, the first ever comic appearance of Spider-Man from August 10th, 1962, posed this way to match Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko's cover art. In that first issue, the cover art isn't anything that we see Spider-Man do in this origin story. The green suited guy is just meant to be a generic thug who is retroactively named Steve, historically as a nod to Steve Ditko. A news report afterwards says that these guys were part of the Manfredi crime syndicate. The Manfredis are led by Silvio Manfredi, aka Silvermane, and in the deleted restaurant scene of Far From Home, Peter was fighting the Manfredis there. In Spider-Noir, an alternate universe version of Silvermane, the Irishman Finn Byrne was played by Brendan Gleeson. Peter always catches these news reports as part of his routine to pick up flowers for the grave of Aunt May. We now see that May Parker's birth year was 1964. The birth and death years on this headstone were covered in No Way Home, but now the MCU is okay establishing those events as happening in 2024. Aunt May was not 60 when she died. She was around 54 to 55 since she dusted in a blip. We see the moment Peter moves into his attic storage loft space. This is why his apartment in this movie is different from the space he moved into at the end of No Way Home. We actually found a 3D floor plan of the set design of this, and even an asbestos-filled loft like this in Manhattan with a bedroom and kitchen attached and this much natural light would go for like a minimum of $3,000 a month. I mean, probably way more than that given this square footage, but you know, maybe fewer people want to live in Manhattan in the MCU given the recent Sentry-caused shame shadows from Thunderbolts and how bad things must have gotten in every big city during the blip, and maybe those whales in the Hudson are just really loud. During a snowy winter month, Peter wears a vest and knit cap. Peter has to wear outerwear now because the heaters that used to be in his suit were custom add-ons from the StarkTech suit in Homecoming, installed by Tony Stark after his experience with cold after the icing over of his armor in the first Iron Man film, and him nearly getting hypothermia in Tennessee in Iron Man 3. Now that Peter's suit was made by himself, he has to intentionally add layers for cold weather. Actually, I found this vest. It's an original Breakburn Outfitters make. This whole look of Peter is also something that we saw him wearing in 2018's The Amazing Spider-Man number 795. Peter is fighting Matt Gargan, the Scorpion, Michael Mando. We last saw him in Spider-Man Homecoming when he was seeking weapons from Adrian Toome's crew on the Staten Island ferry, then knocked into the water and arrested and imprisoned on Rikers Island, where we saw his scorpion neck tattoo as he vowed to put Spider-Man's head in a dryer. It's not clear in this moment how Matt Gargan got out of prison, but in Morbius, we saw Adrian Toomes teleport to another universe out of that prison, and maybe between the chaos of the blip and everything that happened during No Way Home, Gargan was just able to escape. Gargan now has his Scorpion exoskeleton suit, and it looks awesome. He never had that in Homecoming, but there was one subtle line indicating that Adrian Toomes and his tinkerer Phineas Mason did at least build it.
We still don't have to do the Gargan deal though, right?
Yeah, but then that's it.
This armor armor has a green color to it as a nod to Scorpion's look in the comics. And if you look closely at his uppercut attack on Peter, Gargan controls the tail movement with his arm doing the uppercut. I really love this functionality. This framing is a restaging of Alex Saviuk's comic book cover art from 1994's Spider-Man Adventures #2, the tie-in comic with the Fox Kids Spider-Man animated series that was airing at the time. Actually, when talking about all the comic covers that they recreated for this movie, Destin Daniel Cretton said that they had to shoot these slow motion shots at 420 frames per second, which is insane. That's 14 times slower than the normal frame rate of 30 frames per second. Cretton said that there wasn't room for acting choices in such a small gap of time, but that Tom Holland, within that 1/14 of a second, could control his body well enough in order to strike these kinds of expressive poses. I specifically love the detail of the knit cap flying off of Peter's head. In order to get that, you know how hard it would be to place that at first, to time it for it to fly off just like that? To finish this fight, Peter quips to Gargan, "Let's end this on a high note, yeah?" And then he knocks him out with a mini grand piano. Next, we see the MCU debut of Tombstone, Lonnie Lincoln, played by Marvin Jones III, aka Rapper Crunden. This shot recreates Sal Buscema's cover art from 1988's Spectacular Spider-Man 142. Really the most iconic Tombstone cover. He asks, "If I drop you here, how long would it take for you to hit the ground?" This scene introduces Liza Colon-Zayas from The Bear as Detective Jean DeWolf. DeWolf is a detective who teams up with Spider-Man during the 70s and 80s runs of the comics until the 1985 death of Jean DeWolf storyline, where she dies at the hands of the Sin Eater. Actually, in this scene of the movie, there is a shout out to the writer of that storyline, Peter David, with the storefront sign that reads P. David's Services. New York One news host Pat Kiernan makes another Marvel cameo as himself. He previously was the one who broke the Daily Bugle Mysterio footage that outed Peter Parker in Far From Home and No Way Home. Now reporting that it's a New York as the crime rates have dropped to a record low.
I think they let AI write
this movie is
everything
titled Brand New Day after a particular era of Spider-Man comics that began in 2008 following the One More Day storyline, in which Mephisto granted Peter's wish that the world would forget that Peter is Spider-Man, including erasing his relationship with MJ. And this era re-established Peter as a classic anonymous, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in a somewhat restored era of street-level conflicts and drug dealers, gangs, and other similar criminals. The montage shows Peter taking out more low-level supervillains, all in slow-motion shots recreating other classic comic covers, starting with Boomerang, restaging Eric J. Larson's cover art for 1991's Amazing Spider-Man 345. Boomerang Fred Myers was a Spider-Man villain from 1966, an Australian-American who got caught taking bribes that ended his baseball pitching career and fell into the crime organization called the Secret Empire. We found out from an art book related to this film that each of these boomerangs have different explosive abilities. Next, Tarantula, restaging Tarantula's first appearance in Ross Andrews' cover art of The Amazing Spider-Man 134 from 1974, showing Spider-Man evading one of Tarantula's foot blades on this boat. Just as there is on the cover, there's a cop here aiming a gun with his hand on another cop whom Tarantula had just injured. Tarantula, Anton Miguel Rodriguez, was a South American terrorist who ends up working for the Brand Corporation, who wears razor-clawed boots and gloves that are tipped with toxin that render his victims unconscious. Then Ramrod, restaging Bob Wycheck's cover art of The Amazing Spider-Man number 221 from 1981, when Spider-Man jumps to allow Ramrod to ram his head into a brick wall on the campus of Empire State University. Ramrod is a cyborg with metal plating on his head, shoulders, and chest, originally introduced in Daredevil number 103 in 1973 as a creation of Kerwin Broderick and Moondragon as a cyborg weapon against Daredevil. He faces Spider-Man in the 1981 comic in a plot by Ramrod to develop a potion that will make people go into a rageful frenzy and then die shortly after. Billy Clements played Ramrod in this movie, and he said on Instagram that he was grateful to make it into the film, considering they shot lots of other scenes
cool
with
as hell. They should have gave him
actors that
more
were
screen
removed
time
from the final
because he
cut.
looks
Kinda
cool as
curious
hell.
who else they had in mind for this movie. Pat Kiernan also said that Spider-Man defeated the Hand, whom we see Peter leaping toward in this epic slow-motion wuxia wirework shot.
The Hand was
Daredevil
awesome
was not
to look at,
scrubbed out of this shot. The Hand represents an ancient order of ninjas, first introduced in live action in the Daredevil series in the Netflix era. Their goal then was to defeat death and attain immortality by digging up the bones of an ancient dragon buried beneath Midland Circle in New York City. Remains that they used, along with human blood, to synthesize the resurrection elixir. The leaders of the Hand have used this to stay alive for centuries, but they used the last of it to resurrect Elektra Nacho.
They come off as like a group of people, a group of soldiers or ninjas, whatever the fuck you want to call them. They come off as a group that don't know what the hell to do unless they're being told what to do by somebody else. That's how they come off in this movie. Like real zombie-ish, like, what do we do next, boss?
into the weapon known as Black Sky. The Hand was supposedly defeated as of the Defenders crossover series in 2017, but this movie suggests that all these years later, the Order carried on with these 5 or 6 left with their bright red Frank Miller era clothes. This movie really uses the Hand as a visual flourish to stage some really cool looking action, especially in the final battle in the prison, but I'm not sure how much the creative team working on this movie watched the Netflix shows or understood what the Hand was really trying to do back then. Peter.
When playing games on PC, do you ever wonder if someone had a clip with you in it?
Hurry up.
Download Metal, then go to Albums, Clips.
Receives the key to the city from new mayor Sheila Rivera. Sabrina Guevara returns here from Daredevil Born Again on Disney Plus, where Sheila was Mayor Wilson Fisk's chief of staff. But when Fisk was forced to resign at the end of season 2, it seems that she has stepped up, at least as interim mayor. The city's general support for Spider-Man now represents a full 180 from when Fisk, in his inaugural address, called out Spider-Man as a vigilante.
I don't need a gun-toting vigilante who wears a skull on his chest, or a man who dresses in a spider outfit.
Peter plays with this key to the city while he sits
love how
with his
everything's
bruised
connected.
legs next to his
Perfectly
building's washing
connected.
machine where he washes his suit, reminding me of Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 2 when he did his laundry and his suit turned all of his white clothes pink. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring today's video. When the weather is hot, everybody has a shorter fuse than normal. Being patient is hard. In the car and in No Way Home when he's being interrogated by the DODC. In this Instagram post, Ned talks about all the great memories he racked up at MIT. Night swimming in the Charles River with Jen and Wiley.
Who knows? Maybe in the
infamous
future you'll
food
see
fight
me
at
get
the
some
Banana
sponsors,
Lounge. The Banana
and I'll have
Lounge
to
is an
do the
actual
same
room on
shit.
the MIT campus that's filled
I'm
with
not
bananas.
hating on the
And
homie.
all-nighters
Get your
with
money.
MJ and someone he calls Nate Dogg. Maybe Nate is the name of the new boyfriend played by Iman Esfandi. Ned says it feels like yesterday when he was sitting on a rooftop with
this scene was crazy. Like, that's the most stalkerish shit ever. Peter Parker went to the party where Ned, first of all, let me tell you, he follows Ned from the gas station or store, whatever the fuck that was, where he was buying drinks and shit for the party. He follows Ned to the party and then creeps around the party just like drink. He's like this drinking his drink. Just like watching them from the side and corners and, you know, stalking Ned. And then he finally sees MJ and she's with her boyfriend and they're like, you know, not being nice to each other. He's kissing her and shit. And fucking Peter's just sitting there eating that shit up. Like, dude, mentally torturing himself for no fucking reason. When he's Spider-Man, he can just go live his life. You know, he's a cool ass dude. He got muscles. He's strong as shit. He can make life happen, but he's just trapped in this fucking I love you
MJ
thing.
thinking about coming to MIT. This shows how his memory was altered by the spell. In No Way Home, Ned, MJ, and Peter all sat on the rooftop dreaming of going to MIT. We see a close-up of the Emperor Palpatine Lego minifigurine. This was how Ned first greeted Peter in Spider-Man Homecoming as they were working on their Lego Death Star together. We saw in the No Way Home final scene that Peter kept that. As Peter exits his apartment, we see a spider in a web in his doorway. We also saw a spider in a spider web in one of the opening shot of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man as Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker ran to catch the bus. This movie will also show our Peter going through a similar physiological change. Peter calls Detective DeWolf from the bodega. In this shop, every time we're in here, really, Bureau can be seen on the shelves.
I just want to add real quick. So in the scene where in Far From Home, where Peter's fighting the Green Goblin and he's gonna go murder the Green Goblin. He's gonna go hit him. He's stopped by the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, and Tobey's just like staring at him in the eyes. He's barely using any strength. Like, you can see he's holding with some muscle, but he's not like forcing it. But Peter's using all his strength to try to stab the Green Goblin, and Tobey's just kind of like holding it. He wasn't using all his strength. And I just want to add, that's because in the Tobey Maguire universe, Spider-Man, he had already went through those changes and matured as an adult Spider-Man. So we were watching Tom Holland's kid version of Spider-Man, where he hasn't matured yet, all his muscles. So that's why Tobey was so much stronger than he is. And in this movie, we see Tom mature and he gets so much stronger. And that makes so much sense. See that how everything is connected in the MCU? They put so much thought into everything.
Holland's non-alcoholic beer brand. DeWolf brings up the headaches Peter has been getting, as we saw him rubbing his head in the opening montage, showing how despite the particular triggers he goes through in this movie, his physical changes are something that has been coming along for a while. Peter responds to another call and runs across a rooftop, hops over an AC unit, sending us into this incredible leaping and swinging montage. I don't think we've seen anything this good since Jerome Chen's work in the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man films. It reminds me a lot of the action we see in the Insomniac games. Peter awkwardly rolls on the diagonal building surface and then goes into a leap where we see his point.
But you gotta imagine the people in that building. You're just doing your work in your office, all of a sudden you hear because Spider-Man just slammed into the side of your fucking building. It's sliding and it zooms off. Like, Spider-Man is reckless.
View of his boots. I love how there's some sloppiness in the movement and the subjectivity as we are seeing what Peter sees. Now Peter runs down this beam and does this backflip dive. We see his body reflected on the nearby building glass as his suit ripples in the wind. And another new shot that we haven't seen in any Spider-Man movie before, a macro close-up of Peter's eye under the mask as the eyepiece's heads-up display reflects in his eyeball. Remember, we saw Peter testing his HUD with EV earlier, and it's this new goggle and the tiny signal that it emits that MJ later deduces as responsible for his inhibitor chip on his neck not reaching his brain. I love how they set up the answer to that mystery right here in the first 10 minutes. There's another great shot from Peter's point of view looking up at his arms as he swings toward the Empire State Building. The camera shakes like it's a GoPro strapped to Peter's head or his shoulder. And then on the next big leap, Peter just soars through the air, and notice how he takes a moment to like crack his knuckles as he looks over at the tank plowing through the street. He might also be rubbing his wrists because along with his headaches, his wrists have been aching. Peter here swings into this alley over a pipe, the kind that clotheslined Harry Osborn in the 2007 film. Oh! Oof. And he kicks off the side of the building to follow the hijacked tank as it plows through two cop cars. This scene and most of the exterior street shots were shot in Glasgow, Scotland in the earliest days of shooting in August 2025. Onlookers noted that they were using practical swinging for many shots, suspending a stunt actor from a swinging cable attached to truck-mounted rigging. That's a big reason why the physics of Peter's movement looks so natural and grounded in gravity throughout this sequence. Plus the fact that they were able to shoot on an actual city street, giving lots of shots depth of field where they water the surfaces. It just gives so many of these shots texture that we never saw in past films. I went into a lot of why this movie.
See that little scene right there where he taps that kid in the head? At first, I thought that right there might be a little nod to the Miles Morales whole thing. For a while, I thought that was it until later there's a whole nother cue. You'll see it.
Movie looks this good in this new series that we started, Why It Looks Like This. We're actually going to start doing that at least twice a month here on the New Rockstars channel as a new show that we're doing, and we're happy to announce and launch it here. So please check out our past. A lot of us saw this girl's hair and immediately started screaming, "It's Rogue!" It's not Rogue, but Jean Grey shows up as randomly in this universe as this random extra does. Peter webs the wheel of the tank and reels himself into the back of it, and then his Spidey sense goes off.
He's a corny Rogue.
That chime you heard was the same sound of Peter's Peter tingle going off in No Way Home when he sensed Norman Osborn was about to betray him.
Peter?
That chime sound effect lasted over Peter walking around and past Otto and Norman, but here it's condensed as Peter just senses the grenade being launched from Frank. By the way, we also heard that chime the moment Peter dusted in Infinity War. A process that was drawn out for Peter because he could sense it coming. The explosion knocks Peter off of the tank, and then he gets sideswiped by the battle van of Frank Castle, the Punisher. This is our first time seeing the battle van in live action. Punisher had it in the comics since Giant-Sized Spider-Man in #4 in 1975. So really the van itself comes from Punisher crossing over with Spider-Man. The comedic timing of the shot recalls a similar shot where Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man gets sideswiped by an NYPD SUV in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. There's also a similar shot in Far From Home of Tom Holland, Peter Parker in Berlin getting sideswiped by a bullet train. All three examples are really an homage to the iconic Buster Keaton stunt of how he just exits quickly out of frame. Now, there is actually an Easter egg here in the mural art in the movie version of this shot. You can see street art showing B-Rabbit. Yes, Eminem's character from 8 Mile, which is actually from the Salvador Larroca variant cover of 2022's The Amazing Spider-Man #1 Legacy 895.
I didn't notice that.
Showed B-Rabbit in a rap battle with Spider-Man with Daredevil and Miles on the crowd watching. This movie is is surprisingly heavy on Jon Bernthal's Frank Castle. But back before both he and Tom Holland got cast in their Marvel roles, the actors recorded each other's audition tapes when they were shooting a movie in Ireland in spring 2015.
Tom made my first Punisher audition tape, and I made his Spider-Man audition tape.
And it was actually Jon Bernthal's idea for Holland to do a backflip to enter the scene, which Holland says got him the part and was the origin of the Spider-Man do a flip and Homecoming.
How about that?
I covered Frank Castle's past in the MCU in our homework video, but now he's been generally in New York City and apparently met Spider-Man in a Staten Island incident where Peter saved him. Frank's windshield has a window built into it so that he can shoot weapons forward while he's driving. Presumably the rest of the glass is bulletproof, making it super impressive that Peter can kick it out later. And on Frank's dashboard, we can see some bolt cutters, a radio, and a whole bunch of unpaid parking tickets. Peter snatches and webs Frank's first grenade launcher, but this time Frank is ready for him with another one.
What do you think's downrange of that tank, dum-dum?
Peter gets launched back into the tank, where he webs the sides of the buildings to create a slingshot to propel himself back at Frank, smash through his windshield, and pull Frank out of the van. And Peter keeps things neighborhood friendly.
That shit had to hurt.
Surprised we didn't get an F-bomb here.
That shit had to hurt.
Every PG-13 movie, but I guess the producers are realizing a lot of kids are seeing this movie. The tank heads into a damage control detention center where Matt Gargan is currently being transferred. The tank crashes through the wall, and Peter smartly swings in front of it and uses that same web to drag the people who are about to be crushed out of the way. Peter pries open the hatch to find this nice older woman inside. We later find out that she was a janitor working at the DODC warehouse in Brooklyn.
Another commercial.
Booking.com. Booking.yeah.
So that Brooklyn break-in that Peter called DeWolf about earlier was probably connected to this. There are dozens of actors in this film who get to play one of the people possessed by Jean Grey, and of the ones who don't get lines, the credits call them the Inhabited. I really
Yeah. So I was actually thinking about this too when I was watching the movie. There was a bunch of people that get possessed by Jean Grey, and they, you know, if anything about acting, and you have speaking lines, that shit brings you a nice check. So there's this one specific scene where Jean takes over this kid, and he's talking to Peter on the street, and he has a nice amount of speaking lines, let me tell you. And this movie's about to hit $1 billion. Let me tell you right now, that little side actor that did that little side role with no real name or nothing, and he's just talking to Peter on the side of the street for maybe like 4 or 5 minutes, that shit gonna get him a nice check. Believe that shit.
love how much this film gives these day players moments to shine and how well they all crush it, both as they embody Jean's personality and when they come to their senses, and in the physical choreography they all have to do to thrust their bodies in order to convey the transition. This choreography for The Inhabited was designed by Nathan Kim. Breaking into this facility to get Matt Gargan was all part of Jean's plan. She goes from the janitor to the DODC soldier and then to the agent upstairs. Cretton and Pollack do this awesome lateral tracking shot showing Jean's consciousness jumping among 4 inhabited victims as they force their way through the crowd. And on the last one in the hard hat, notice how Jean turns this guy around to smirk at Spider-Man, because she's not trying to blend in, because her goal is actually to get Spider-Man away from the tank so that the tank can explode without his spidey senses alerting himself to the explosives to stop it. We also get a little clue here of Jean's 33-foot range limit once this worker gets on the roof, even after he...
This movie, at the end, by the end of the movie, it's like sympathetic towards Jean Grey and her cause or her goal. And let me tell you, she's a fucking murderer. Like, she's nuts in this fucking movie. She's absolutely a villain. And by the end of the movie, she's you know, she's one of the good guys. But it's like everybody just like forgot all the crazy shit she did throughout the movie to get to that point. Is the Spider-Man is pussy whoop fucking character. Let me tell you, he's a Captain Save a Whole ass character nigga. Like, let me tell you, she runs through that city. Now, you'll see.
He sees
now,
the
you saw that part right there where she flipped the tank, she destroyed that building, she destroyed that tank. There's no way that nobody got hurt. You understand? People definitely got hurt. Maybe a few people died.
soldier across the way,
Nobody
he
talks
still
about
has to
that.
walk 10 to 15 feet closer before she would be in range to jump into the next guy. Jean nearly throws this soldier off of the roof.
Look, she was ready to kill that guy.
Murder by Jean Grey here, and completed murder in one case. Or maybe she just trusts that Spider-Man will save the guy.
See,
Jean
even
tries
he
to
says
jump
it.
into
She
Peter's
kills
mind,
the
and we
guy.
briefly
For sure
see
there's
Peter's
one guy
old
that we
bedroom
know
with a
dies.
bunk bed from Spider-Man Homecoming. The walls are bare in this version of the room, but the Mets pennant is still on the wall, and the fan is still in the corner. And on the floor is this brown paper bag. This is the bag that Tony Stark returned Peter's first generation Stark suit in, writing, "This belongs to you, TS." So that would place this memory right after Aunt May walked in on Peter while he was wearing the suit and realized that her nephew was Spider-Man, the final shot of Homecoming. What the? But Peter is able to force Jean out of his mind. In No Way Home, when Doctor Strange pushed him into the astral plane, Peter was able to use his Spidey sense to control his body's motor functions, an ability that Doctor Strange had never seen before. The telepathy of mutants like Jean Grey and Charles Xavier does operate somewhat in the astral plane, so Peter can resist Jean here probably for the same reason. Jean, as this soldier, taunts, "What's in the tank?" And boom! Later, after Jean releases this guy, he says as he's loaded into the ambulance,
"I love you, Spider-Man." Yeah, all right, buddy.
Peter takes the train out to 3250 Brighton Beach
I
in
love
the
you,
Coney Island
Spider-Man.
area, which turns out is a
Buddy,
Russian
settle down.
bathhouse used by Yelena Belova, Florence Pugh, as her office. Yes, every Sony Marvel Spider-Man movie does have at least one cameo from the MCU. This one got a whole bunch. So this would be after the events of Thunderbolts, when Yelena Belova is now part of the new Avengers, struggling to get the public to take them seriously. And I assume Yelena uses this Russian bathhouse instead of the new Avengers tower just because she doesn't trust Val. Yelena makes Peter strip down and join her in the bath to make sure that he doesn't have any weapons on him. He of course leaves his mask on, and she asks about a girlfriend or a boyfriend or something else, mentioning that there's lots of conjecture online and super graphic artwork, specifically one involving Mysterio. While Team Mysterio outing Spider-Man as Peter Parker was erased in the memory wipe spell, the part of Mysterio's posthumous disclosure that blamed the attacks on Spider-Man, a masked Spider-Man, would still be out there in this history. And it follows that there would then be conspiracy theories and I guess graphic fan art and fan fiction about how Spider-Man and Mysterio actually were lovers. Yeah, there would just be a lot of confusion there that a lot of creative artists out there would try to make sense of. Yelena says that Peter's investigation of the DODC is small potato stuff, whereas the new Avengers focus on big potato stuff. Yeah, we're about to see a hell of a big potato in the form of 2 or 3 other Earths in nearby space when these incursions and Dr. Doom arrive in Doomsday. Peter asks Yelena if what he saw with the DODC workers was the same kind of mind control that Yelena and the other Black Widow agents experienced. He's referring to the events of the 2021 Black Widow film, when Yelena was one of the first Widow agents who inhaled an antidote that freed her from General Dracov's mind control that all Widow agents from the Red Room operated under. Yelena says this is not that same mind control, but rather a type of possession, the kind that you'd see from a ghost or a demon or a figure from Russian folklore. And she says that after 4 attacks on DODC sites, there was a cybersecurity attack looking for something called VMAX. So why doesn't Peter go to the Sanctum Sanctorum after this to talk to Wong and Strange about what kind of ghostly possession this could be? Well, because he went there in the last movie. But also it seems like he just trusts the DODC too much and just wants to ask them personally because he thinks he can get to the answer sooner. He shouldn't trust them though, because the moment he arrives, they make him go through this full body scanner at gunpoint. There's a lot of interesting text that shows up on this scanner if you look closely. On the lower left by his hand, the screen reads H-EN and enhanced human or human enhanced. On the upper right by his head, the screen reads radiation detection. It's looking for gamma radiation, like what Hulk and She-Hulk have in their blood, or the cosmic radiation given off by figures like Carol Danvers, Monica Rambeau, Kamala Khan, and Wanda Maximoff. Technically, the spider that bit Peter was supposed to have a kind of radiation that resulted in his powers. I think they're just documenting everybody that comes through there. Operator Agent Ramirez, priority elevated, and in the upper right we see subject designation, Vigil 09, identified, enhanced operative, threat level, agility,
every time you walk through there, it
last known activity,
categorizes
urban traversal via synthetic filaments,
there.
visual lock acquired, confidence 92%. I guess that other 8% would be him taking off his mask. And then beneath that, a rundown of Peter's abilities and their classes according to the DODC. You can see superior strength, muscle fiber density, 12,500 PSI tensile strength, enhanced class B, superior agility, neural response time 0.02 seconds, reflexive overdrive class C, heightened senses, ocular enhancement, 360-degree peripheral awareness, augmented class A, enhanced perception, ocular enhancement, peripheral awareness, and then again augmented class A. So this is huge. We are seeing how the DODC has already come up with various categories and classes of enhanced individuals and their abilities. The DODC was already hunting enhanced persons in the Miss Marvel series, which included the Clandestines from the Nord Dimension and the Jersey City girl Kamala Khan, whom whom we now know has a genetic mutant status. And in Wonder Man, the DODC was processing violators of the Doorman clause in Hollywood, which included Simon Williams, who in that series was mysteriously born with the powers that he had. Peter meets a new director of the DODC, William Bill Metzger, played by Tremel Tillman, who is an incredible actor from Severance. In the comics, William Metzger is a militant anti-mutant leader and propagandist. Giving a suited government authority this name tells us that Marvel Studios plans to use him and the DODC in their future as a mutant hunting agency. Metzger in this scene really lays out all the reasons the DODC are the true villains of this movie. He shows Spider-Man the hand ninjas and says that they were just a group of kids without a leader.
They look like they're being mind
in
controlled.
Redirecting the threat that they brought. Similarly, we see the scientists and the engineers of the DODC messing with Shocker's gauntlets from Homecoming, as Metzger talks about the tech being in the right hands. Selfishly, he just wants these super abilities in his own hands to beat up mutants. I like the detail where Metzger looks a little suspicious when he confirms that this telepath could not jump into Spider-Man's mind. That's because he's secretly working on a way to replicate that telepathy artificially, and he's realizing right now that they'll never be able to use it to control Spider-Man someday. Metzger won't tell Spider-Man what's in the vault or what VMAX is. In truth, Metzger doesn't know what VMAX is. It's really a red herring clue in this movie, making us think it's going to be a mutant curbing toxin or something like that, when really it's just something personal.
I think the whole VMAX thing was stupid. If I had anything to complain about this movie, like a real complaint, it would be that the VMAX thing pretty much led to nowhere. It was a nothing clue. I feel like that was the Marvel people, they know what they're doing. They know how to attach everything perfectly, and maybe they didn't need this to be anything. But I thought it was corny. It leads nowhere.
Between Sarah and Jean. Peter spots Ned in the bodega where Ned buys a keg and energy drinks he's addicted to.
Here's what I was talking about earlier.
Paula's loser as Peter follows Ned into his house party. In Ned's room, Peter finds a Chewbacca Lego minifig that's also part of that Death Star set, and Ned's huge Spider-Man research wall. So many fun details here. There's references to Peter's appearances in Europe from Spider-Man Far From Home, Venice, Prague, Berlin, London, and his appearance in Berlin in Captain America Civil War. And speculation, is he British? Which of course Tom Holland is. The German newspaper to the right is a photo of Peter crouched on a truck at the Berlin airport tarmac from the Civil War battle, with the caption translating from German to a photo from a surveillance camera of Tony Stark's newest recruit. Much of the German text is cut off, but what I can make out is a mention of the Avengers in the column to the left, and the text above the photo translates to showing how he, in a fierce fight with Captain America, tests himself. That German reporter probably saw the moments Peter whipped Captain America's shield, and later in the battle, when the hero from Brooklyn left the hero from Queens pinned under the heavy collapsing jetway, but made sure the kid was okay, to eventually lift it on his own.
You got hard, kid. Where you from?
Queens?
Brooklyn.
And again, these news articles would still exist despite Doctor Strange's memory wipe spell, which did warp physical media because none of those reports showed who Peter Parker was under the mask. There's also an article behind the clipping of Peter at the airport battle that's actually in Czech, suggesting this would be an article from one of the Prague reporters reacting to the fire elemental attack in Spider-Man Far From Home and the Night Monkey. Specifically, we see the name Mysterio in phrases translating to in combat gear and the characteristic round helmets of, and then energy disruptions utilizing as nuclear. It sounds like this Prague reporter was describing the Mysterio fishbowl helmet, and they're worried the fire elemental attack, which were really the drones faking that illusion, were powered by nuclear technology. We also see a newspaper clipping mentioning adrenaline junkie Ewan Hendry being arrested for scaling the skyscraper for the 8th time. Ewan Hendry is a set decorator who worked on this film. Ha, you made yourself an Easter egg, Ewan. We also see how Ned realized that Peter's shoe size is 9.5. Okay. Then this article reads, Spider-Man Unmasked.
Right there. Spider-Man Unmasked. Could this Latino parkour prodigy be the web slinger? Look, he's wearing Nikes. That's Miles, 100%.
Could this Latino parkour prodigy be the web?
But who's right here in this picture right here on the side? That's a dark-skinned kid for sure. He could be a Miles Morales, and he is on the wall sideways, more or less. We're just trying to see if we could recognize the actor. And look, we got another up here on the top right-hand corner. We got another picture of a dark-skinned character with a beard. Could that be the what was his name? Not the Raven. His uncle. What was it?
Slinger. 10 years ago, Carlos Rodriguez was a viral sensation with his impressive parkour video.
He's just Carlos Rodriguez. But I don't know.
until he mysteriously stopped uploading. Could it be that he picked up a new identity? Ironically, the word parkour actually gets pretty close to the real identity of Spider-Man. And then another note breaks down known characteristics. Gender, male, age 18 to 25, ethnicity white, first appeared 2016, Queen's accent. Yes, 2016 would have been the first year Peter Parker appeared via his YouTube videos. And Queen's accent, love this. Tom Holland was the first Spider-Man to really hone in on a specific Queen's accent, and it's part of how his normal English accent has disappeared into the character. With this movie, you can really hear how Holland perfected it and amped it up, as he would have spent 4 additional years as a New Yorker. Holland recently joked with Amy Poehler on the Good Hank podcast about how English actors often are the worst at doing American accents because many of them don't super focus on one specific to DC and their trip to Europe. To the left of these is a photo of Peter's hands labeled slightly small, another dig to, I guess, Peter's physical attributes. MJ walks in and she's wearing the broken black dahlia necklace that Peter bought for her in Venice, given to her via Happy Hogan and Far From Home.
That's not gonna sting.
Broken,
that's
but
not
MJ
gonna hurt your
it
heart
was broken, and she
to watch
continued to
her
wear
and
the
see
same
her
necklace in
there
the donut
wearing
shop
your
at the end of No
shit
Way
you
Home,
gave
even
her.
after the memory wipe spell, which
Peter's
is a sign that
insane.
part of her still remembers Peter, and that part of her is still alive now. MJ notices the flowers that Peter initially bought for Aunt May, which Peter now says is a housewarming gift, and it's why Peter improvises his name being Maynard, a neighbor across the hall, he says.
I'm just a neighbor from across the hall.
Friendly neighbor.
Without realizing it, MJ works in Spider-Man's friendly neighborhood moniker. In the kitchen, we see Ned's mini keg was for Green Jackal beer. This is not a real brand, so some have interpreted this as a reference to Spidey villain the Jackal, aka Dr. Miles Warren, who is green, but he's not in this movie. We learn that MJ was offered a job for some soulless corporation that she turned down, even though it had health insurance, leading to this solid joke where she's like, yes, but at what cost? And Ned's like, depends on what your deductible is. Then the boyfriend, never named, played by Imanis Fondi, brings in a pack of Ramune. This is a Japanese carbonated lemonade. Already this handsome face is sliding into the trio, into the same role Peter had. And when he plants one on MJ, Peter knows he has been replaced by Ezra Bridger and his beautiful blue eyes. Peter swings through the rain, recalling the much shorter kiss MJ gave him on Tower Bridge and Far From Home. And then the moment the three of them were on the rooftop in No Way Home dreaming of a fresh start at MIT. Then the moment he said goodbye to MJ, and when he nearly told MJ the truth at the donut shop. Back at home, a very drippy Peter sees his reflection in the monitor, showing his eyes all black. He collapses, much like Tobey Maguire's Peter collapsing in a cold sweat in the 2002 film. Now we see the memory that Jean nearly hacked into, sometime after Aunt May caught Peter wearing his Spider-Man suit in his bedroom. I like how in this memory scene, they seem to make up Marissa Tomei and Tom Holland to appear younger, kind of like they looked in Homecoming. And Tom Holland in particular speaks in a higher register and a slightly less pronounced Queen's accent. The next morning, Peter wakes up in a cocoon, suspended outside, mostly naked in this alley. An outside corner like this would be where a spider would naturally find a safe spot. Peter pushes his way out and falls before catching himself with his organic webbing coming out of his wrist.
You know what else this scene shows? I don't know if he's going to mention it or not, but it also shows how New Yorkers don't give a fuck about nothing that's going on around them. And New York is a wild ass place that shit like this could just happen and people are just like, no, walking by, who cares? A man just fell out the sky.
At first, trying to wipe it away before he falls to the ground. So here it is, organic webbing in the MCU. Originally in the comics, Peter Parker has always used mechanical web shooters. The whole concept of organic webbing coming out of your own skin came from a very early idea for a Spider-Man movie in the late 80s, when it was conceived as more of a body horror film akin to The Fly. When James Cameron took on the project, he kept a lot of those elements and specifically conceived of organic webbing coming out of the wrists in an extended scriptment that he wrote when he was imagining Leonardo DiCaprio for the role of Peter Parker. But then when the rights to the film were in dispute in the late 90s, they eventually landed at Columbia and Sony, and Jurassic Park writer David Koepp took on the script, and he kept James Cameron's idea of organic webbing, which is how Sam Raimi included the idea in his 2002 Tobey Maguire Spider-Man film. Water exploding into the bucket, and we hear a chip bag dragging across the rooftop.
His senses are going crazy because now he's evolving.
It's quite like Sam Raimi's sequence in the 2002 film when Peter oversenses the fly and the spitball and the monstrous Joe Manganiello's fist coming at him. Peter actually references this directly by recalling that Peter too had organic webs, something that completely shocked and grossed out the other two Peters when he thwipped from his wrists in No Way Home. And like Tobey's Peter, we get this little sequence where our Peter tries to command his web here on the rooftop, but fails, like Tobey Peter's rooftop trials in the 2002 film. But now when Peter shouts web, all of his organic webbing sprays.
See, a lot of this content in this movie is also setting up for everybody can understand that Tobey is the more advanced Spider-Man. He is the more stronger. He's been Spider-Man the longest. Like, he's the more, I would say, like the strongest, the best, you know, like out of all three, he's the more reliable one that we're going to need at the end. The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man is the one we're going to need at the end of whatever, or the Secret Wars or Doctor Doom, whatever it is, it's definitely going to be Tobey, because all this is in reference to that Tobey Maguire character constantly.
Out like a fire hose, and then after it seems to run out, there's one last little spurt. Bad Bunny's Ayo plays as Peter chaotically smashes into a water tower and then slides across another rooftop and sticks to these pigeons. I mean, all I can really see with the purple clouds of the sky and the way the sun is shining through them, just great coloring throughout all of this. But unfortunately, in all of the wide shots of Manhattan in this movie, whenever we see JP Morgan Chase Tower, we do not see the new Avengers Tower next to it, as it appears in the recent Doomsday trailer. It's not in this movie, and it's really frustrating. Jean, controlling Scorpion, seeks the VMAX in the DODC data center. Peter swings into this area screaming, smashing through 3 signs: Bob's Hotel, then this taqueria sign, and then Jen's Pizza. I love
everybody
the
saw Spider-Man
There's 3 objects of varying distance from camera getting knocked before a quick camera pan and Peter crashing practically in the foreground. Jean controlled Scorpion attacks, smartly using Scorpion's stinger to drag his body to a halt. Peter's headache worsens, and Jean/Scorpion sticks the stinger right in his face, and now Peter's arachnid DNA takes over, and Peter goes into instant kill mode, grabbing Scorpion by his tail and smashing his body on a cop car, and then ripping off that tail and completely beating him with it. DeWolf arrives and tells Spider-Man that he almost killed that cop, and Peter seems particularly terrified by this, fueling my theory that one or both of Peter's parents were first responders who died during 9/11, since he was born 1 month before those attacks, and something must have happened to his parents for him to have to grow up with Aunt May and Uncle Ben. Peter goes to the campus of Empire State University. Empire State is a college that Peter attends in the comics and various other media. It's where he meets Gwen Stacy. Now, Peter doesn't actually attend this college as a student in this film. He just kind of goes on campus wearing an ESU sweatshirt. Bruce Banner is now a professor here. He previously appeared in the form of a photo among noteworthy scientists in Peter Parker's high school classroom in Homecoming. Banner lectures about lattice quantum chronodynamics. This is a branch of theoretical physics that describes the changes of subatomic particles like quarks and the gluons that hold them together, as well as the whole universe. Banner says,
I think they're trying to show you how in this past few years, Banner has come to terms with who he is, and now he's living more of a happy, content life with his new gadget that keeps the Hulk away.
Can arrange time and space in a grid. Time and space in a grid? That kind of sounds like the way Dr. Doom and Reed Richards are going to science their way through universes in Doomsday. And ironically, time and space were the 2 Infinity Stones that Bruce Banner was most consequential with before he snapped all 6 stones together in Endgame. The Time Stone, when he got it from the Ancient One, and the Space Stone, when his variant from 2012 knocked the Tesseract, sending it to Loki's feet. Without him doing that, we would never have Loki variant L1130 and the whole Loki series, and how important the character is going to be in Avengers Doomsday. A girl named Cindy races
Loki's going to be very important for the rest of all these Marvel movies in general.
And in Spider-Man Homecoming and Infinity War, that Cindy was played by Tiffany Espenson. But this Cindy asks, if Thanos was worried about overpopulation, why didn't he just use the magic glove to make more food? A valid question that channels like ours have touched on over the past 8 years. We've actually made lots of videos about what Thanos was cooking. But Banner answers the question by throwing to this Hulk fanboy Arthur, who just stands and screams, "Hulk smash!" and the classroom cheers. But in a way, this is really the best answer to that question, because really the logic wasn't that great behind what Thanos did. He was just kind of a dogmatic monk at the end of his life who had tried everything else. Sometimes big dudes just get so angry that they stop seeing logical solutions to things and just give into their rage to smash shit.
No, Thanos made that decision because that's what Thanos does. Like, you understand, like, through his whole reign as this powerful being in the universe, what he did was go to planets and decimate civilizations. Like, that's what he did. That was his mind state. He's a warlord. So when he had the ultimate power, he was only going to come up with ideas that's on the warlord type level. Like, kill everybody. Like, that's what, he's like Hitler. Like, that's what he was doing. That's why he made that decision. It's real simple.
And sometimes what gets smashed is half of all life. After the class, Peter asks Banner about his inhibitor device.
Banner's always smiling.
Models of this wrist device in the Shang-Chi post-credit scene, and in She-Hulk, it's a device that keeps him in a human form instead of his smart Hulk form that he created in the Gamma Lab in Avengers Endgame. If you look closely at this device, you can barely make out the serial number of ASM-14. This is a reference to Amazing Spider-Man number 14 from 1964, the first comic issue where Hulk crosses over with Spider-Man. Peter tells Banner that his name is Ned Leeds, and I wondered why not just use his real name of Peter Parker here. Well, maybe Peter is worried that Banner's Hulk identity, the Savage Hulk, will remember the name Peter Parker and start freaking out. We have made some videos explaining whether Banner's Savage Hulk identity knows who Peter Parker or...
No, I don't agree with that at all. I think Peter used a false name because he knows he's talking to a smart man, and he knows that that man can easily start to put 2 and 2 together real quick about why are you asking these specific questions, who is this kid, and blah, 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 blah. This way, if he does start to look up names and try to find out, like, you know, maybe this kid is Spider-Man, he's going to look up and find the wrong person. But that's simple. Like, Peter's trying to live a life of, like, low key. He's going to give a false name everywhere he go to everybody he talks to. It's not just because he's talking to Banner. He's gonna give that false name everywhere. You saw him do it earlier in the party to Ned and fucking MJ, you know?
Spider-Man are. In Thor Ragnarok, Bruce experienced a total blackout for the 2 years Hulk was at the wheel, but Infinity War, the two identities seemed to be able to converse with each other and hear each other. And it was in the second of those movies where Bruce learned this.
There's an Ant-Man and a Spider-Man?
There's actually a moment later on in this movie where Savage Hulk does seem to remember Peter Parker, and that's what saves Peter. But here, Peter asks Banner that since he can diffuse the gamma radiation emitted by his DNA with this device, then theoretically, would it be possible to target specific mRNA transcriptors and turn those genetic expressions on or off with a similar device? Peter starts running away with his thinking and dreaming of a device that could automatically suppress any genetic mutation, and Banner cautions him that such a universal inhibitor could control anyone with any powers. So this is crazy, but basically in this movie, Peter Parker invents a prototype for a mutant inhibitor device. Yes, the kind of device used in the collars that we often see in X-Men stories, and the kind of device that anti-mutant groups in the future mutant saga, like the Friends of Humanity or the forces of Henry Peter Gyrick and William Stryker, or the Sentinel technology of Bolivar Trask will all use as part of their armory. It is wild that the MCU made Peter Parker the J. Robert Oppenheimer of the mutant saga. And by extension, Bruce Banner is kind of the Albert Einstein who warned Oppie, which makes it fitting that Bruce Banner's photo was next to Albert Einstein's in that classroom. Banner says, "How would you decide what parts of nature are good or bad? What if you're trying to control the expression of something that needs to be expressed?" Yes, it's a deep question for Peter in this movie, but it's also an existential thematic question for the whole mutant saga that will soon begin in the MCU. Should a sudden influx of enhanced mutants amounting to 0.5% of the population be controlled, or should it be allowed to express itself? And who makes that decision? Peter wears a Delmar's Deli shirt as he builds an inhibitor chip, listening to nothing Professor Banner warned him about. Delmar's was the deli and bodega in Queens from the earlier 3 films.
Peter makes horrible decisions. Period. We already know this. Horrible decisions. He's a child with too much power.
We actually have this shirt in our merch store, nerdright.shop, along with a new Spidey tracker design and Peter's The Physics Are Theoretical shirt. Peter listens to a YouTube video in the background where we hear Keith David's narration from the trailer about spiders. Interestingly, in the trailer, Keith David said, "Spiders have 3 life cycles," but here the audio changes the wording so that we hear him say, "Spiders have 3 stages in their life cycle." It's slightly more correct, but as I pointed out when we heard this line in the March trailer, it's still not totally accurate because spiders are arachnids, they're not insects. Spiders do not go through stages of life the way insects do. Spiders just kind of hatch out of eggs and look kind of like they do for the rest of their lives. They just molt as they grow larger and larger. But that molting is not a distinct stage. I also just think it's odd for the great Keith David to narrate this small moment of the movie. I wonder if it was going to be a larger part of the film, but due to the inaccurate biological phrasing, they just removed it. Because similarly, there was a scene that was featured a lot in the marketing of the film where Peter would have demonstrated a vaccination for kids where a girl brought up this same spider life cycles line again.
Do you know the one thing he is never scared of? Needles.
What the?
It's probably spider puberty.
Hey, come on! on. Spiders have 3 life cycles. Have you shut up your old skin yet?
Yeah, this scene was completely removed from the movie, just making it very weird that Sony kept it in the marketing as late as June. Peter's 4th model inhibitor chip works on his own arachnid DNA, so he takes it for a spin outside. In the alleyway, there is a campaign poster on a dumpster for Wilson Fisk, making NYC safe. Now, some have believed that Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin could never appear in a live-action Spider-Man movie due to rights issues, but Kevin Feige recently clarified this.
Did you ever go down the road of Daredevil, Kingpin? From what Vincent has said, there are some rights issues on the Kingpin side.
Later, Jean was somewhere else kissing the air. That's just very funny to me. Now Jean jumps into a businessman and then this woman and then into this poor street worker played by Judd Charlton.
This is what I was talking about.
Jean walks into the—
This is what I was talking about right here. Let me tell you, look. This is crazy, bro. Jean just jumps into this guy's mind, controls his body, has him walk into traffic and get smashed by a taxi. He for sure died. There's no way he survived it. He's an older man. Look at the way this car hits him.
The street to get wrecked by a taxi. No way this dude survived this meat Joe Black
No way.
Jean Grey straight up murdered this guy. I don't know.
100%.
Maybe she learned something about this guy when she went into his mind. I mean, that's the only justification I could think of. But even in that scenario, just kind of flag him and then circle back to him later and make him turn himself into the cops with evidence of whatever he did. Like doing what Jean did also kind of ruins the taxi driver's day. Peter chases Jean through the bodies of the inhabited into this wedding. And I love the way he crashes into the 4-tier wedding cake. The top layer just kind of neatly drops.
She's a fucking murderer. That's crazy, right? They made Jean Grey that level crazy.
This bride and groom are named Lucy
I don't know
and
where
John.
this is
Actually,
going.
when their names show up on the helicopter and trailers, some comic fans noted that there is a Lucy and John Riker from the Incredible Hulk's comic run of the aughts by Paul Jenkins and Ron Garney, where Lucy Riker is someone dying of cancer and she gets injected with Hulk blood, making her a disfigured gamma being. I don't know. I don't think that's this couple. Evie measures the distance between the jumps and comes up with a maximum limit of 33 feet. Now, Peter doesn't know in this moment if that's the actual precise limit, because that would just be anecdotally the maximum that Peter and Evie saw while Jean was jumping in this chase. Like later in the DODC, they confirm a radius of 40 feet. So I'm guessing it's actually a bit further. Also, we learn that Jean can just sever whatever dead end link that she has and just start over with someone closer to her. So it's not like she was trapped in this helicopter with this guy forever. When I first watched this movie, I was as convinced as Peter that he just came up with a really great plan. But when I watched it a second time, I was like, why would he assume that that would work? In MJ's bedroom, notice there are photos of just Ned and MJ, no Peter, from how they looked in No Way Home. Spider-Man comes in and quickly explains that MJ's in danger and she needs to come with him, and MJ quickly agrees to come. A little too quickly, because I think at this point Jean has already gotten into MJ, because as they're swinging, they never seem to be within 40 feet of anyone else.
I'm telling you, I watched this movie already like 4 times, and I keep going over that scene over and over again. And Spider-Man leaves Jean Grey's mind trapped inside of a guy who's trapped inside of a helicopter high up in the sky, and she can't jump into anybody, specifically because of the whole 33 feet thing. She's up in the sky. She has nobody to transfer to, so she either has to go back to herself, or I don't know. So I've watched the scene a couple times. The only thing I could probably think of is that she did go back to herself and she wasn't actually that far away from MJ already, and somehow, like, I don't know, from across the street, she was watching her from an apartment, fucking saw her through the window and jumped into her mind. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that shit out. But it's a very, like, loose scene. Doesn't let you know.
Zendaya plays this rooftop scene so well, because on one level she's giving us the astonished MJ realizing that they must have known each other, but also the actress gives us enough to suspect something is off about her. She's just a little too doe-eyed in this realization. It's like
Yeah. I thought she did a great job in this scene as well.
Jean Grey is doing a theater girl audition of someone realizing something. If it were just MJ figuring something out, her realizations always come with a bit of sarcasm and a little paranoia. None of that is here. But possessed MJ here recalls the Washington Monument, London, and Prague. She does not bring up the Liberty Island scaffolding incident, maybe because Jean doesn't want to alert Peter's spidey sense that he might have to go jumping after MJ in a moment. Jean, as MJ peels up Peter's mask above his mouth, just like Kirsten Dunst married Jane did when that Peter was upside down in the 2002 film. But this loving kiss is—
I ain't gonna lie, I teared up on this scene right here. I thought this shit was like, damn, after all these years, he finally gets to kiss his girl.
followed by the complete unmasking and tearful hug, followed by this gut punch as Jean now says,
yeah, shit is completely like, as you're feeling that moment, as fucking Peter is hugging and kissing MJ, he's telling her, I've missed you so much, and you're feeling this moment like they filmed it so well. You also find out that it's not MJ, it's Jean is controlling her mind, making her do all these things. And you can straight snatch that moment from Peter. Like, that shit was crazy.
Go ahead, Peter. Touch her. Hold her. You've been wanting to do this for so long. Damn! Zendaya really knows how to drop a, hey Cass, how long have you been fucking Nate Jacobs? This scene really had all of us fooled. Jean as MJ mocks us, the audience. True love's kiss breaks the spell and reunites the star-crossed lovers. Yeah, I kind of thought it would for a second. And notice how Michael Giacchino's music here is exactly what we hear in the previous great twist of this franchise when Peter's in the car with Liz's dad, revealed to be Vulture. In that scene, John Watts used the shifting traffic lights on Michael Keaton's face to convey his villainy. Here, Destin Daniel Cretton has Zendaya step back to let the neon red glow on her face. Peter's right. What Jean is doing here is monstrous. To control a woman's body without her consent and make her kiss another person is a form of assault, Jean, on both MJ and Peter. Is Jean too evil in this movie? We're going to talk about that in our sneak peek podcast episode coming Sunday.
Absolutely.
They shot this on the rooftop of the real life Silver Cup Studios, the New York area production facility where many interior scenes of Daredevil Born Again were shot. Peter's arachnid rage emerges and he suspends Jean-controlled MJ over the ledge, just like Tombstone did to him earlier in the movie. And remember how Tombstone asked how long it would take for Spidey to hit the ground? Now Peter's gonna have to do some of that mental math to answer that question. I mean, it's not that hard. It's 9.8 meters per second squared times the height of the building. I'm sure Peter has gotten that figured out. Jean kicks MJ off of Peter and lets her drop, and I love this transition. Just as the red light leaves Zendaya's face, representing Jean leaving her body, that's when MJ's panic sets in. We get this slow motion lateral shot of Peter diving after MJ, just as he did in No Way Home before Goblin swiped him away and Andrew Garfield had to go after her to redeem him failing to save his Gwen. I will always love how much they want to milk this kind of shot. It looks awesome. I also love how our Peter learned from that, and he knows he has to grab the person he's saving and not just whip her so that he can absorb the impact of whatever hit they're gonna have on the landing. Peter takes MJ to Frank Castle's booby-trapped boat warehouse. Frank lives on a boat called Golden Girl, which is a nod to Jerry Conway's spectacular Spider-Man number 141 from 1976, the first time Spider-Man and Punisher team up against Tombstone. Punisher in that issue uses a boat called Golden Girl as his hideout. MJ finds all of Frank's memorabilia of his wife Maria, his daughter Lisa, and his son Frank Jr. Also, it looks like a stuffed bear. And Peter uses his facial scans of this mystery telepath to learn her name is Jean Elaine Grey. So yes, after months of speculation, it's now confirmed that Sadie Sink is playing the mutant and future member of the X-Men, Jean Grey, the third actress to play her in live action after Von Janssen and Sophie Turner. She's the first official member of the new cast of the X-Men introduced in the MCU. We gotta do another video just going back through every interview and media appearance Sadie Sink made, denying or just not answering the question that she was Jean Grey. Recently, Ryan Reynolds appeared in Spider-Man, totally referencing the fact that she is Jean Grey, and Steve Lacy did spoil it at the red carpet. But you know, now that I'm looking back at the clip, all he did say was Jean, and he might have been saying that his favorite character was Jean DeWolf. Have we all been too mean to Steve Lacy? Nah, there's no way he knew Detective DeWolf's first name was Jean. So Jean Grey is an Omega level mutant with advanced telepathic, telekinetic, and in some cases reality warping powers, and eventually becomes the host to the Cosmic Phoenix Force. She's gonna have a big future ahead of her. Sadie Sink is already confirmed to return in Avengers Secret Wars, and it's assumed that she's gonna be a star of Marvel Studios' X-Men film coming either in 2028 or 2029. But here in this movie, Marvel Studios is doing something different with Jean Grey's origin. She has an older sister named Sarah Grey, like she has in Chris Claremont's run of the comics, a sister who's also a telepathic mutant, rather than being recruited.
Absolutely pointless to introduce Sarah Grey, bring her into the franchise, part of this movie, everything. I don't know why they needed that so that they can make Jean as evil as she is in this movie. I don't know where this is going. I don't know what they're going to try to do by that, but I thought that the Sarah Grey character was absolutely pointless.
Their mother, Elaine, into foster care, and then they become runaways using their body hopping powers for fun until they were hunted by Metzger in the DODC. So questions for the X-Men/mutant plan at Marvel Studios remain after this movie. Are there other future X-Men in this 616 universe? Like, is there a Professor X and an Xavier Institute up in Westchester County? Was there an Eric Lenscher Magneto?
I would have loved to see a cut scene at the end of the movie, a post-credit scene where let's say Jean is riding the bus. She's going away at the end of the movie. She's going to wherever she's going. And then suddenly she's contacted mentally by Professor X. And they have like this quick 2 seconds like, and we hear, hello, Jean. That would have been fucking amazing. Amazing.
Who survived the horrors of World War II in this history. While Marvel Studios has confirmed characters like Kamala Khan and Namor as genetic mutants, are there other young mutants in the 616 universe like Scott Summers, Aurora Monroe, Hank McCoy, Bobby Drake, who just haven't been discovered yet? Is there a James Logan Howlett Wolverine in the history of this universe, like that headline about a man with metal claws fighting in a bar brawl in that one She-Hulk episode? And why is Marvel Studios introducing a homegrown mutant now in the 616 universe right before the events of Avengers Doomsday, which will so prominently feature returning X-Men from the Fox X-Men universe of Earth 10005. And really, in this 616 universe, where have the mutants been all this time? Well, I'm guessing Marvel Studios will start to answer these questions at D23 on August 14th, and then in Avengers Doomsday in December, and then throughout 2027. It was reported on Friday by Deadline that Samara Weaving from the Ready or Not films.
I also came to this conclusion too. I wanted to mention this. So in this movie, we have this new young Jean Grey, and she's just discovering her powers. She's getting started in the MCU, right? This is a new Jean Grey. But in Doomsday, we're gonna get all the X-Men characters from the old movies are returning, so they have their own universe. We get to see Patrick Stewart, Hank McCoy, all these old characters, all these old actors are still playing their characters from their world. They're not young. My point is that this Jean Grey has to be a new Jean Grey specifically from this universe where Spider-Man is at, because they already telling us that the X-Men from that universe still exist, and they are the people they are, who they used to be from the old movies. They're all old. So there has to be an older Jean Grey over there. You know? Just saying.
And various other roles, has been cast by Marvel Studios in their upcoming X-Men film as Emma Frost, the telepath with the ability to turn her body into an indestructible diamond texture, played by January Jones in X-Men First Class. Emma Frost is a member of the mutant villain Hellfire Club. Meanwhile, Obsession's Indy Navarrete revealed that she was in talks with X-Men director Jake Schreier, potentially about playing Mystique, and rumors are out there that Charles Melton and Kaylee Spenny from Beef Season 2, which was written by the people writing the X-Men film, are in talks for characters like Beast and Rogue. But for now, my best guess is that mutants in the 616 universe have existed all this time, just in slightly isolated numbers in secret, not realizing there were others with their shared X gene. But then recently, events in the 616 universe like gamma radiation released by the snaps of the Infinity Stones, or incursions, or just a side effect of Doctor Strange's spell, something activated dormant X genes that were in 0.5% of the population. You could say it's just natural for evolution that with all these crazy reality warping events, 0.5% of humans would evolve to have advanced powers to help the overall species survive. I think Marvel Studios just wants Jean Grey to be the focal mutant of the story that they're telling in the mutant saga. An angry, gifted girl, grieving, oppressed, hunted, and exploited, capable of scary, violent acts, but also capable of redemption. Introducing her in this billion-dollar Spider-Man movie, I think, is the best way to get young viewers invested in her journey. And Sadie Sink is amazing casting for that. As to the Doomsday and Secret Wars of it all, I'll have more thoughts on that in future videos. MJ helps Peter fix his inhibitor chip and gives another voice of warning, saying this is like altering your DNA. Using the Oppenheimer example, she's kind of like Isadora Rabi, lovingly warning this Oppie that he is opening up too big of a Pandora's box. Meanwhile, Jean has raided the DODC headquarters tower. When Peter gets in here, he sees some hand ninjas kind of limping away, wounded from trying to fight the Hulk. Jean shows Peter Banner's broken inhibitor, meaning she inhabited Smart Hulk. This is his 7'5" form from Endgame, capable of talking and wearing some clothes, and is conscious enough to be controlled this way. So now Peter has to use his second inhibitor chip on Banner first. But Jean gets a sudden headache. I wonder if she's struggling to contain the Savage Hulk identity beneath the mind of Banner that she's inhabiting. Frank Castle arrives, laying some suppressing fire and roaring like he always does, and Peter traps Banner in this web grenade. And I love how Banner here does one rare range attack that I don't think he's ever done in the MCU, the Seismic Stomp. He does it on Punisher. I love seeing it here.
It was
Clearly,
fun.
Dustin Daniel Cretton is a huge fan fan of the
watching
Hulk. It
the
shows.
Hulk. Even if he was kind of like a Professor Hulk style still, but it was fun.
So basically, Frank gets some shots at Hulk's feet and his like under section, and then when Hulk's facing away from him, he totally gets a shot right up his butthole. Now Frank grabs this alien grenade. So the art book for this movie confirmed that the DODC also has confiscated Chitauri tech and Sakaran tech and tech from Rocket Raccoon. So I feel like this grenade is something Rocket had. Now Banner is able to angrily force Jean out of his brain, but it's really the deeper Savage Hulk monster that's the source of this rage. Frank and Peter bicker over a plan. Peter goes to try to contain Hulk with the chip while Frank goes to take out Jean, and he wants to shoot her, a plan that he'll eventually just carry through in this movie. But Frank gets distracted by this alien skull in a liquid tank. I think this is a preserved Chitauri skull. So Jean surprises him and inhabits him and hilariously notes, this guy's got issues. Yeah, just pay no attention to the ghost son screaming at you in the corner. Later, John Bernthal has some fun with his Sadie Sink voice saying, whoa, good luck with that, Peter, and kind of walks away. And I just love here that we get a proper Bruce Banner Hulk out scene. It's crazy to think how rare it's been in this franchise to actually see Bruce Banner try to fight off and ultimately lose to the Savage Hulk that tears out of his shirt and not cut away from it. 2012's Avengers only showed the moment Banner actively controlled the transition.
I'm always angry.
But it's clear here that Destin Daniel Cretton just really gets the Hulk and what makes him iconic. So now we stay with Hulk on the full transition. And for the first time since the opening minutes of Infinity War, Hulk is back to his Savage Hulk form. 8'5", more monstrous than Ruffalo actually looks. And now our man is shredded. He's veiny, there's no body fat, he's terrifying. Hulk's first move is to grab Spider-Man by the legs and thrash him around, just like he did to Loki and Thor. He's got a favorite move.
Let me tell you, Spider-Man is probably the most durable character in all of the MCU. This kid takes a licking.
But one thing that Hulk is not ready for, because he's never fought Spider-Man, is how nimble the spider is. Spider-Man crawls on Hulk's back, which is an iconic visual that goes back to their first comic duo appearance in The Amazing Spider-Man number 14. This Spidey versus Hulk fight is just exhilarating. Cretton and Pollack shoot Peter in this shot, webbing down a corridor.
Barely any injuries
surfaces,
after
having
all
the camera
that shit.
follow Peter as we're spiraling down the hallway, and this giant green threat just plows after us. This spinning Inception hallway is my...
I don't know. On some level, I feel like Spider-Man should have fist fought Thanos, because like the Hulk be laying it down, and I'm telling you, he gave Spider-Man a whooping, and he barely didn't even cut him or scratch him. Barely.
Favorite shot of the movie. But then the webbing eventually snares Hulk, and he breaks out of it with his other iconic range attack, the Thunderclap. The Thunderclap was featured in the 2008 Incredible Hulk film, but that Hulk used it to extinguish flames on a helicopter. It was shown again briefly in the She-Hulk series, but Smart Hulk's Thunderclap was shown as weaker than his cousin Jen's were. But this Savage Hulk's Thunderclap is an explosive blast. Peter grabs the Shocker's gauntlet, labeled in his heads-up display as Gauntlet X. Maybe the DODC is starting to use the X nomenclature for how they plan to use these devices. Spider-Man and Hulk tumble out the side of the building when Hulk rams them into the facade they're speeding past. We get this great scaling of his massive thumb and fingernail on Peter's shoulder.
Slammed him into a wall.
Misses the chip at first, and it flies
right
at the camera, and then he whips
wall.
it back away from us, and then
no
he
injuries.
webs past
the suit
Hulk.
didn't break either.
Detail,
Let's just mention that too.
Learns during this fight. He just looks at the web and grabs it to pull Peter back through a window. Now Peter swings around the building, webbing Hulk to pin him more and more against the face of the building. But unfortunately, the inhibitor chip will not stick through Hulk's thick skin, so Hulk rips off this whole side of the building, sending them falling in the debris. But Peter has fought in this kind of terminal velocity environment before, jumping from debris piece to debris piece while saving the heroes from Thanos' moon toss in Infinity War. So now Peter's able to lily pad back to Hulk and Shocker Gauntlet uppercut him. So now with Hulk being tugged backwards by the heavy debris, he tries to stand his ground, and then Peter, thinking he has the upper ground, goes in for a KO.
Now we know
but Hulk catches the Shocker Gauntlet and crushes it.
The
Hulk
webbing was cutting into
kills
his
Peter
skin.
here, but Peter gasps, "Bruce, it's Peter. I'm your friend."
It should have been one or two punches.
Hulk sees Peter's eyes through the mask, and he sees his own reflection.
But it wasn't.
And
Peter took that shit.
So why does Hulk back down here? Did Peter somehow break through to Bruce? I mean, Hulk's hand was right up against Peter's body. Did the Peter tingle do a kind of sun's getting real low stroke on Hulk's palm under there? Well, I see this as evidence that Savage Hulk did remember Peter Parker, that Savage Hulk was unaffected by Doctor Strange's memory wipe spell. I think Banner didn't remember who Peter was, but I think Hulk did. kid. Meanwhile, Jean and possessed Frank break into the vault, but Peter gets in and sticks the chip on her neck. And as Jean goes down from the dart, she tells Peter, Sarah, before she passes out. When Peter gets back to MJ on the boat, he sees, uh-oh, she has found the letter. And we have this heartbreaking face-to-face exchange over Peter's decision to not tell MJ all this time they've known each other and to erase her memory. And Peter says that he doesn't want to live without her and says, I love you, the phrase that she wouldn't let him say to her face back in No Way Home until he came back to find her. He's like, maybe this is the moment. But now MJ just says the spell worked and the girl who loved Peter is gone. And while she's grateful that Peter did this to protect her, the MJ standing before him now can't love him. She doesn't even know him. I love the way Zendaya plays this. It's like a heartbreaking exchange with so much emotional truth that we cannot help but agree with her. And on top of it all, Peter has to hold MJ as he swings her back home. But MJ isn't breaking up with him forever. She brings him inside to meet Ned.
The Spidey Tracker app says that Spider-Man
they stay
is
friends
in the
at least
vicinity.
for the most part.
Oh yeah? No way, that's crazy.
Ned drops his tablet the same way he dropped the Lego Death Star upon seeing Spider-Man in the same room as him in Homecoming. Notice the tablet glitches when it hits the floor. I wonder if this is connected to the glitches the app experiences when it locates another Spider-Man in nearby space in the post-credit scene. It could all come from Ned's innate sorcery that he had in No Way Home, specifically when he located Peter too, Tobey Maguire. Peter and Ned go right back into their old ways, this time working together to build a Lego X-Wing, mirroring how they previously built a Lego Death Star. The X-Wing is the fighter that brought down the first Death Star. Just like the rapid-fire questions Ned asked Peter in Homecoming about the spider that bit Peter and Peter controlling the minds of other spiders, now Ned does a similar thing, asking Peter what he does when he has to pee, if he just finds a rooftop. Not only does this harken back to their high school days, Peter's also surprised to see how Ned has grown after graduating MIT, guessing pretty close to how Peter engineered his web shooters and his web fluid. And now these two nerds quote,
"If you're referring to the incident with the dragon, I was barely involved. All I did was give your uncle a little nudge out the door."
This is a quote from Ian McKellen's Gandalf from Peter Jackson's 2001 Lord of the Rings.
I was wondering where that line was from.
If you're referring to the incident with the dragon, I was barely involved. All I did was give your uncle a little nudge out of the door.
Gandalf was referring in that moment to the events of The Hobbit, when he and Bilbo encounter the dragon Smaug. Yes, movies. It is wild that Peter and Ned here are doing an impression of Ian McKellen, who's about to join this universe as his other iconic role of Magneto. The MCU is full of these kind of paradoxes of movies starring actors in the MCU appearing as movies in the MCU. But we should also acknowledge it's kind of crazy that the dragon in that franchise referenced in that line was played by Benedict Cumberbatch, whom both of these kids just worked alongside in the previous film when he played Doctor Strange. I mean, obviously the Lord of the Rings movies can exist in the MCU. I don't think the X-Men movies can exist as movies in the MCU. But just as MJ did in Homecoming, now she sketches what she sees. Before it was a doodle of Coach Wilson, now we see Ned and Peter building the Lego X-Wing together, but Peter's mask is up in the sketch, which means that she was able to redraw his face from memory, from their sad chat on the boat several minutes before. Peter realizes that Metzger lied to him about who Sarah is, so Yelena helps with research that Jean Grey had a sister named Sarah, a fellow telepath who was experimented on by the DODC. And with Jean in captivity, we see the flashback of her final memory of Sarah, played by actress Olivia Booth Ford. Jean is established as having an older sister named Sarah in 1980's Uncanny X-Men number 136. Sarah has latent mental powers like her sister Jean, and according to this 2014 CBR article, Chris Claremont planned that Sarah would be a mutant with the ability to activate latent powers in other mutants, as she does for her sister Jean in this movie. Here, Sarah teaches Jean to body hop, and they talk about how a mother gave them up when their telepathic powers began to express themselves. Jean asks, "What would you do if you had daughters like us?" And Sarah responds, "I'd love them, especially the redhead." Someday in the future, Jean will have at least one daughter, Rachel Summers, and her clone, Madeline Pryor, will give Scott Summers a son, Nathan Summers, aka Cable, a motherhood that Jean will kind of share through cosmic memories shared through the astral plane to Madeline. Sarah has a
kind of already played on that in the cartoon.
That Jean will later use to remember Sarah.
You guys haven't watched
colors of Jean's Marvel Girl suits. Sarah gets arrested by Metzger in the DODC. It actually looks like the whole ice cream truck was in on it, because Jean, after being forced to walk away by Sarah, sees that ice cream truck slamming the door, with Sarah probably inside. Jean is now in.
So they give the vibe that these are like transient girls. They left the foster home. They've been living on their own, you know, doing what they can to survive. But being that they have mental powers the way they do, they could go eat anywhere they want. They can walk into clothing stores and just check out the cash register. Nobody's gonna ask them questions and make you forget they was even shopping. Like, they was doing all right. They're not like fucked up, living on the streets, hungry, starving. No, they're transient, moving around undercover because they're mutants, but they're not doing bad.
this containment cell on Roosevelt Island. Roosevelt Island in the middle of the East River has some importance to Spider-Man cinematic lore. It was the Roosevelt Island Tramway in 2002 Spider-Man where that Tobey Maguire Peter faced off with Green Goblin. Metzger set up this room apparently as a playful bedroom for Sarah. Like, you can see roller skates on the floor and paintbrushes on the table. Super messed up considering what it was really built for, as he explains to Jean, to scan their telepathic brains to replicate this in the mind of another person that they could control. Metzger says, "You're gonna change the world, Jean." Yes, an Omega level mutant like her certainly does have the capacity to change the world in all kinds of ways. Metzger activates the brain scanning machine that he built through the many months of trials with Sarah, and he deliberately tells Jean to honor her sister's sacrifice, knowing that Jean's anger will get her to repeatedly try to jump so that they can see what part of her brain is being used to do that. But we have to ask, would any such DODC device have ever worked? Could they replicate this telepathy power in any body, or just someone's body who has the X gene? I just find Metzger's plan in this movie to be woefully incomplete. It seems like these human authorities have yet to make the discovery Kamala's friend Bruno made, that for some of these people their powers come from their genetic makeup. Jean makes the heartbreaking discovery of what VMAX really is, just the last thing Sarah saw when she died of exhaustion.
This is what
looking
VMAX
up at the ceiling
was.
and seeing the peeling label of the AC vent, Vent Max. And now this trauma, this anger really enhances Jean's powers. And the way Jean's neural passageways light up her brain scan here does remind me of the opening title animation of the earlier era Fox X-Men films, showing the advanced human brain of Charles Xavier as we were seeing Cerebro at work. The DODC text says that Jean's frequencies are evolving and her brainwaves are somehow affecting objects in the room, showing that in addition to telepathy, she also has telekinesis. When Metzger reaches for the controls to shut it down, the tech grabs his arm and says, "I can't let you do that, Bill." A reference to the creepy moment in 2001: A Space Odyssey.
"I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that."
Jean says, "The only hands that will control this power are mine." And boom! She releases a psychic shockwave that blows out the windows of the control room, freezing everyone in there, and it's spreading out from
a bunch of those
Roosevelt
people
Island,
got glass in their eyes and
freezing
their
diners
face.
in this
Like,
restaurant.
there's no way
I love the
they
detail
did.
of the cyclist crashing into the car crash, and the cyclist himself going paralytic midair, and then of course the dog on the other side of the barrier barking. Jean's psionic energy pulsates with a translucent rainbow glow that goes particularly pink when we pass through it to Frank. Usually a pink glow is the manifestation of Jean Grey's psionic powers. Peter goes into this prison facility and Jean takes control of the hand. I love Fen Zhang's fight choreography, even if I don't know why logically the hand are in this movie. Notice how at first they all link up in a chain with their initial blows against Peter, and then they leap in the air at him, which even Peter can't help but marvel at. God, that's cool. There's more wuxia-inspired wire work here as Peter runs from a ninja along the cage wall, and then on the higher level, the camera pivots upside down to follow Peter on the ceiling as he continues to fight them. But unfortunately for Peter, the DODC have these sonic web dispersion cannons that Peter realized they specifically designed to control him. The ninjas destroy both of Peter's web shooters and work with the DODC cannons to knock Peter out. Meanwhile, Jean holds Metzger in a chair with glass shards pointed at his face, similar to how Ebony...
Basically, this whole scene, the fight with the hand and the interactions with Jean in this moment, there's all basically to set Peter up to get to that moment when they're just like, accept who you are, accept who you're becoming, stop fighting who you truly are inside. Now you understand what I was talking about. The overall lesson in this movie still has a little wokeness to it, a little message to the woke community. Just gonna leave that right there.
Ma tortured Dr. Strange on the Q ship in Infinity War. Meanwhile, she tells Peter through this hand ninja, "People like us don't get to live a normal life. We don't get to have friends or family. Those people are gone." Peter remembers the moment Aunt May died, when he embraced MJ in No Way Home, putting his head to her head, when he did his final handshake with Ned, and when both MJ and Ned hugged Peter on the rooftop to console him for losing May. Jean tries to make Peter choose. Are you Peter Parker or are you Spider-Man? The idea being enhanced beings like us, mutant or not, have to choose between having souls and empathy and human connection, or we're just our lonely superhero or supervillain monikers, and that's it. Peter removes his chip, he lets his eyes turn black, and he declares, "I'm both." And he uses his freaky strong organic webbing to shatter the sword. But as Peter punches this ninja upward and webs him before that ninja gets impaled on a pipe, his eyes retract and he regains control over both his arachnid hormones and his empathetic human identity. He's now kind of like Neo seeing the Matrix. He dodges the ninja stars with framing look.
And that's also going to let you know right now, in the future, we will see Peter completely lose it on purpose. There's going to be a point in either Doomsday or Secret Wars, most likely Secret Wars, where Peter lets go, those eyes go black, and Peter gonna catch him a couple bodies. I promise you, that's gonna happen. This is all a setup for future films.
Like Tobey Maguire when Joe Manganiello's huge arm punched past his head and he turned his head back to look at Flash's face. Our Peter's organic webbing takes out the cannons because those cannons were not calibrated for whatever this is. And then Peter leaps up to end up doing a web tornado. Not to hurt the hand ninjas, but to suspend them all in his spider's web. Finally, Peter's able to put his endless fire hose web spray to use in this film. Peter gets into the room where Jean is and he allows Jean to inhabit his mind this time. And now Jean joins Peter and May in the bedroom, and it's Jean sitting on the bed with May instead of Peter, because Peter knows that the wisdom May gave him in that moment to him as a teenager after she realized he had powers is the same.
At the end of the day, Peter was like, Jean need herself a good girl talk with a mom figure, period. Calm her little wild ass down. And that's what he did.
Wisdom that Jean Grey needs to hear as her powers have activated. Aunt May says, you're a really special person, and I know that will always make you feel really great about yourself, but I know sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it will be really lonely, and sometimes, because you're special, people can do dark, monstrous things to you. But this is what I want you to know. You're beautiful, and the people who love you, we love you not because you're special. We love you because you're you. I want you to remember that. Even when it feels like you're totally alone, that's your deepest responsibility. Never forget that, no matter how powerful you become. I don't know, there's just something about—
You hear that? Woke message. Message!
About an aunt telling a nephew that he's beautiful that is just so sweet, and it hits even harder that Jean Grey just needs a mom to tell her this. Also, again, I love that they included the brown paper bag from Tony Stark here in the scene, visible in the shot. Written on it, this belongs to you, TS. Because in a way, Tony Stark is giving his blessing here. He's telling both Spider-Man and Jean Grey and all mutants after her that this world belongs to them.
This is also Peter's subconscious. So in this room lies his most happiest memories. His childhood bedroom, his Aunt May, the day that Tony gave him his outfit. This is just subconscious. This is just him, a collection of all of Peter's most happiest moments, the things that he loves the most.
Peter now takes May's place on the bed and tells Jean that she's not alone, effectively becoming the ambassador to all mutant kind in the MCU. A responsibility that Peter will have to fight to uphold, considering he's also the Oppenheimer who invented the mutant inhibitor collar. Peter's spidey sense alerts him to the dark void of this room, death itself. And
I think that's going to have something to do with why he loses it in future movie, why his eyes go black and he goes nuts and starts killing, because there's going to come a point in the movie where his invention is really going to put a stop to a lot of mutants and maybe kill a lot of mutants, get a lot of mutants killed. And he's not going to be able to live with that. Absolutely not.
Castle sniper bullet. That 0.02 second reaction time from the DODC scanner earlier in the film comes into play here as he steps in front of the bullet. Jean puts her hand on Peter and begins to breathe. Later, while he recovers, we see that she's somewhere in a park using her powers to continue to breathe for him and to keep his heart beating. That's incredible. Frank Castle cradles Spider-Man's wounded body into the ER. You know his ghost son was like, I didn't mean get him, Daddy. Frank holding Peter like this recalls Steve McNiven's art in 2006's Civil War #5, when Peter, after getting the Iron Spider suit and unmasking himself publicly, ends up getting beaten up by Jester and Jack-O-Lantern, and Punisher finds him and takes him into an infirmary shouting, give me a medic, now! The people of New York City hold candlelight vigils, and we see the Empire State Building light up red and blue. This shot was actually recorded in March of this year, when Tom Holland appeared on the observation deck of the Empire State Building to promote the launch of the first trailer. Peter wakes up and finds MJ's drawing at his bedside with lots of other crappier kids' drawings. After an apology from Frank, Peter walks out unmasked among the crowd as Frank redirects their attention up to the window, waving, wearing the Spider-Man mask from the room, allowing Peter to just—
So, remember I was saying earlier in the beginning of this video that Spider-Man is living and Peter is dormant somewhere in the mind. So this scene right here is the actual reverse of that first scene. The last scene in the movie is the opposite of the first scene in the movie. In this scene, he leaves Spider-Man behind, and it's Peter who is now entering the world so that Peter can live his life. As you see, Punisher is wearing, Frank is wearing the mask to pretend he's Spider-Man. So Peter, for just a little bit, he's going to leave Spider-Man behind. Go be Peter.
enjoy this moment. In a way, Frank also gets to experience something new, the adoration of fans. I love how Frank seems to be like crouching down with his legs spread out to look shorter in the window. One other kid in this crowd seems to recognize Peter and kind of does the webbing hand gesture to him, and Peter playfully does it back. It's kind of like Captain America Winter Soldier, when the random kid was able to see under Steve Rogers' ball gap disguise and Steve trusted that kid to keep a secret. Now, I would like to say that this kid could be a young Miles Morales, but I can't make that case for every kid in this movie. Also, the year right now in the MCU is like 2028 to 2029, and I don't know if this kid was alive 11 to 12 years before this when Aaron Davis in Spider-Man Homecoming mentioned having a nephew in Brooklyn. Like, I don't know, this kid looks like he's like 6 years old. And then we see this lovely shot of Peter sitting on the same part of the construction scaffolding that he sat on when he was feeling really lonely in the earlier shot of the film. Now the building is more complete, and we see a coffee cup, the same kind of coffee cup that MJ gave him, but now he drinks out of it because he's no longer using these type of things to keep letters that he'll never give people. And it's almost like he's still star-crossed, looking across the city at someone with the sunrise behind her.
He's looking at the city, finally at peace, because he's no longer basically on the run. He's no longer hiding. He's no longer wishing he was with his friends. The secret of not telling MJ is off his chest. He's sitting up there, finally at peace. This is Peter's deep breath. He's taking his deep breath.
MJ, she is sitting on the same rooftop where she, Peter, and Ned sat atop in Spider-Man No Way Home when they were dreaming of their future, and she holds her broken black dahlia necklace. Part of her misses what she had with Peter. And then we see Jean resting her head against the bus window.
This is the scene that I was talking about right here, where it would have been great for this very moment. The movie could have ended right here perfectly with her getting a quick little telepathic message from Professor X just saying, "Hello, Jean." That's it. Boom. And then you can see her eyes open. And then the movie fades off.
Reflection of herself leaning back against her head, like two Jeans sharing a mind. An astral form of
this guy looks
Pryor
into
coming
things
in
a
the
little
future,
too deep
perhaps?
sometimes.
This bus is taking Jean somewhere out of town. I'm gonna assume it's going north toward Hudson River Valley, Westchester County, where a certain Xavier Institute might be. Peter put some fresh flowers on May's grave. The epitaph of the headstone, when you help.
She might have found out about Xavier Institute when she was going through all the information at the Defense Department place. Like when she was basically hacking all their computers, using all the employees looking for VMAX. She might have ran across some information about Professor X.
Someone you help everyone certainly takes on a deeper meaning, as Peter helped Jean Grey and potentially helped all future mutants. Detective DeWolf calls to say that Metzger is still missing, but that Yelena Belova is helping the authorities investigate the files the DODC tried to have scrubbed. So now we see how Yelena and the New Avengers could be allies to mutant kind against the authorities trying to hunt them. Also, I love Tremel Tillman in this movie. I would love it if he were the governmental mutant big bad of the first few mutant movies. Kind of like a William Stryker figure, or at least someone partnering with the Bolivar Trask, creating Sentinels using Peter Parker's technology. The film ends back in the bodega. Peter reintroduces himself to his buddy Ned with the recurring handshake, and Ned magically remembers the exact steps of it. He looks up in astonishment and says, "Peter." Is he just connecting the fact that MJ told him that Spider-Man's name was Peter? No,
that shit making me choke up now. Like, that scene is dope.
Could it be the simple muscle memory of a best friend?
I don't know.
Is it the fact that Ned is a natural sorcerer who could operate a sling ring, just being somewhat resistant to Doctor Strange's spell? Or does that Doctor Strange spell just not comprehend these simple gestures of friendship, a kind of love that surpasses all types of obstacles and magic? I mean, MJ even seemed kind of envious of the natural bond that Peter and Ned shared, as if
Jean might have had something to do with that. She might have did Peter a favor and helped those MJ and Ned remember some stuff. And she might have just poked at it a little bit.
She knew that these two were really the ones who needed each other. And for how I think this final shot connects to Ned's Spidey tracker in the post-credit scene, watch our post-credit scene video. But two little details that I will add here that I did not cover in that video. This Spidey tracker app has a new emblem in the lower left, and that was not there in other shots of the Spidey tracker app throughout the film. And the second detail is we gotta remember that this app works by users posting sightings. So really, this secondary Peter is a sighting in space posted by someone else. Who posted it? Was it Nick Fury from a space station, or was it posted by a Ned variant using a variant Spidey tracker app on whatever variant Earth this is, just posted a sighting of whatever that Earth's Spider-Man is? Whew, I loved this movie. There you go. That's this many Easter eggs and details.
Big fan of the movie. Everything was great. I told you about the couple little things that I didn't like. It was, not fun to see or just didn't make any sense. But for the most part, the movie was fucking amazing. Let me know what you guys think, if you thought the movie was amazing too. Also, let me know in the comments, you guys want me to react to something specific. Now that you know we're doing retro videos, I chose to do Spider-Man Brand New Day because Spider-Man is a retro character. So we're also going to be doing new movies based on retro ideas or characters or shows, songs, music videos, old videos that were hype on the internet 15, 20 years ago that people forgot about. We're going to be doing all of that. So guys, don't forget, hit like, subscribe, share this video with everybody. Peace.